Hey everybody, welcome to the third episode of OMO Comic Book Show. That's short for Old Man Orange Comic Book Show. I'm Ryan Dunigan. If this is the first time you've turned into this show or anything Old Man Orange related, this is sort of a spin-off from our usual show. Usual show is me and my friend Spencer Scott Holmes as we talk about movies, comics, video games, whatever, and try to be funny about it in the process. This is more of just me taking two different comic books I like and talking about them. It's gonna be a much shorter show. It's a one-man show. We've been doing this thing where I do a week, Spencer does a week, so we'll see. This might be just a little mini series we try out for a little while, or it may keep on going on. Maybe, who knows? Maybe we'll just get more people for this thing. But for the time being, it's just me. So today, I'm gonna cover some horror books I've been reading lately. I've just been kind of on this real horror kick for comics lately, and I'll start with the first one. So we're getting to our first book, Harrow County, Countless Haints. Now, this is the first volume of the series. I really like this. This is one of those recommended books from the graphic novel club from Comics Experience here in San Francisco. I once again was not able to make it to this particular meeting where I would have been able to meet or ask questions from Colin Bunn or Tyler Crook. But sure enough, though, I'm still glad I'm part of this group because otherwise I probably would not have stumbled upon this book. And this book was really fun. It was a really dark, very creepy, unsettling story. Oh, there goes my phone. But anyway, I'm going to ignore that. I'm just going to keep it in because I'm just lazy that way. But ultimately, this is a southern. The back of it sums it up pretty good. A southern gothic fairy tale. And what it's ultimately about is this witch getting revenge on this town 18 years later after she was murdered. I'm going to give you spoilers ahead. But basically, what ends up happening is there's this witch who was a member of this community, and people liked her, but she did weird little things, witch things usually, just weird things. They didn't like, all right, well, that's weird, creepy witch stuff, but we're going to let it slide. But apparently she also stole babies. She also killed livestock, things that were kind of bad omens. And then once they realized that, they killed her. They hung her and set her on fire. Before she died, though, she threatened to be back 18 years later. Sure enough, sometime, a young girl is born from the tree she was hung on. This tree literally birthed her, and her name is Emmy. Now, Emmy doesn't look a whole lot like her, but she is this young, friendly girl the whole town likes, but at the same time, they're kind of easy. She's like, what if she's her? What if this is what she's talking about? And her father, or her assumed father, her guardian, who she believes to be her own father, is very protective of her. He does not want the town to kill her because they all view her as a bad omen. They all fear that what if she turns on us? What if she becomes evil like the witch and tries to destroy this town? Once again, what if she tries to get her revenge? Well, sure enough, a coup happens and people start to worry. These certain things start to happen. There's a calf in the farm. The calf's about to die, and she helps bring the calf back to life. She ends up naming the calf Shaky, and like, oh, so she does got some powers. That's kind of a weird thing. Sure enough, at some point though, what's one of the things that's kind of interesting about this book though is they have there seems to be supernatural odd things, and even though this takes place in like what's clearly the South, people are almost kind of aware of it. Like they're not really surprised. Like, oh yeah, that's supernatural shit. That happens here. We know about it all the time. At some point, she goes wandering into the woods, and some of the imagery they have in this. There's this part where she goes wandering into the woods, and there's this. She thinks she sees a boy out. She follows the boy deeper into the woods. It leads into these thorny bushes. As she crawls through the thorny bushes, I mean, I'm going to say 95% of people would say, okay, time to go the other way. but Emmy's pretty adventurous, or stupid depending on how you look at it, but I'm just going to call her adventurous because she's a pretty likable character for the most part. She goes into this thorny bush. The further she gets into the thornier bush, it just gets bloodier. There comes to be a puddle of blood. It gets bloodier and bloodier and bloodier. And she comes across the skin of this boy. And it's not able to say full sentences, but it can say small single words. She's like, oh, this poor thing, I need to take it home. It's a creature to her. She's not like, oh, shit, I just stumbled into something, time to go the other way. Her thing is like, oh, wow, this is a creature. This is a thing. I know of these things. I've heard of these. I'm going to take it home with me. So that already kind of gives you an idea of the world this takes place in. So as she takes the skin of this boy home, she realizes that the town is starting to act more weird, and she's also starting to have dreams and visions of her birth and being pulled out of this tree. And something else we realized, there was actually what looked like a shriveled up corpse in the tree right next to her when they pulled her out. But that doesn't come in until later. Spoilers ahead. Again, this whole podcast is one giant spoiler, so who am I kidding? Anyway, though. So, she looks out the tree. She looks out, and this tree where she was born from is within her vision of her window, and she just hates the tree. Something about the tree always just unsettles her. She's always just been creeped out by the tree, and she sees a gathering of people out there. Funny enough, though, the skin talks to her. The skin of the boy talks to her. What's actually out by the tree is the boy himself, just the skinless boy hunched up in the tree like a gargoyle. And all the people in the town are gathering together, preparing to go and kill Emmy. Her father is, no, we can't do this. She's my daughter. She would have done something bad by now if she was possessed or the ghost was gonna, or the witch was gonna take her, but she hasn't. And since the skinless boy is over there, he could hear everything, and he transfers it to his skin, where the skin is telling her everything of what's going on. From there, she's just terrified of what's to come. She knows they're coming for her. Here's the fun thing about Emmy. She comes across as a very, innocent, helpless girl, but the second she's pushed, it's almost kind of like she can flip on a dime. She can just be very... Because at first she's running away. She's running away in fear because she knows the town's coming for her. But then later she comes across, when they're trying to escape, she tries to cut through a graveyard. Now, a bunch of ghosts, these flaming ghosts, come out of the ground. They look like flaming skeletons, to try and warn her. The thing is, they can't talk, though. And there's some nice narration saying if they could talk, they would have said, don't go that way. Anywhere but that way. And that leads to the village coming to kill her, which revolves in her father trying to kill her. He feels horrible. He's crying. He hates himself. He's like, I'm sorry, please don't. But then the skinless boy comes down and just starts to thrash on her father as she runs away, crying, but knowing, like, I got to do this. I can't kill him, but this isn't my home anymore. And she just leaves. As she's trying to leave, she gets help from one of the villagers, Bernice. She comes in earlier. She was one of the people. There's a traveling merchant, and she's the wife of the traveling merchant. And she's a pretty likable character. She was the only person that had her side. But she's still kind of like, I don't know what there is about this kid. This kid has some weird thing about her, but I just can't stand here and let the kid get hurt. But sure enough, though, once the ghosts come, she's like, all right, well, I can't follow anymore. I'm not following you. You don't need my help, but this is some crazy shit going on. So as Emmy leaves, she comes across this goat. They're that giant goat thing that appears at the beginning of the book that we saw the dead witch talking to, this four-eyed goat monster. It's talking about, like, you abandoned me, you left me here, and Emmy doesn't know what it's talking about. Takes a swing at her, she goes running. Sure enough, this old man that looks like, in all honesty, I'm not trying to get political here, looks like Dick Cheney, pulls up in this old-timey car, says, oh, child, what are you doing here? Come on, get my car. And this guy's the medicine man from town. She's met him several times before. As soon as she gets in the car, though, he chloroforms her. She wakes up tied up in his house, saying, yeah, who you were before, the witch. She told me what to do with you. She told me that she would be here, come back to life years later, and here I am now. I'm gonna do what she fulfilled, what she promised. Sure enough, though, that's when the boy comes in, the skinless boy comes in and starts attacking him. And Emmy's almost like fine with that. She has no problem with that. And this is where we see Emmy's almost kind of starting to slowly embrace the witch. And she gets out of there and she comes back to town. He's like, look, I'm not, and the whole town's gathered together. She's like, I'm not going to kill anybody. I just want to live my life. I'll help people if I have to, but if you want me to, but I'm not going to kill anybody. Just let me live. A couple villagers jump at her. She blows them away with magic powers. And she's like, yeah, now you know. Don't fuck with me. Goes to her room. Her father comes in, looks very sad, but at the same time kind of like, oh, I feel disgraced. I don't know what to do. I'm so sorry. And she's like, yeah, yeah, it's fucked up. It's a weird thing, but I kind of get where you're coming from at the same time. It's not gonna be immediate, but it's gonna take some time. And then we see her. We cut to a little while ahead, and she's healing people in the town. We see that little Shaky is doing fine, and it's so she's becoming almost kind of like the village spiritual doctor to some extent. So hopefully things stay on the bright path with her. I mean, I can't imagine them staying too long, since it's a horror book. But this first volume seemed to end on kind of like a bittersweet note with her. Sure enough, though, we turn to the last page. There is someone in the city who's rich, turns around, looks just like Emmy. Says, it's a wonderful day because I rule it. Something to that effect. So, I'm actually looking at it right now. After all, this is all mine, isn't it? The city, the world, all of it. So, and that's after being told it's a lovely day. So, and this girl looks just like Emmy. I assume this is maybe the evil half of Emmy because when she was born, we saw a shriveled up corpse. I'm guessing that's who this young lady grew up. Listen to me now. Grows up to be. So, now another thing about this book is it has a very fantastic art style. The guy who worked on this book, Tyler Crook, he was an artist for Hellboy and the Bureau of Paranormal. I always forget the acronym, but the long name for the organization Hellboy works for. He worked on that, and his artwork looks fantastic. I really like this a lot. It looks kind of Hellboyish to a certain extent, but then combined with a lot of like watercolor. It looks very lush. It's kind of hard to say exactly. There are moments where it almost looks kind of very simple, cartoony. Like when it's a little bit more of a distance, the characters have just dotted eyes, almost kind of like a Peanuts gallery kind of thing. When they're closer up, that's when they have more detailed faces. And it's not even like, super far away when they have dotted eyes, I understand. It's more like when, in comparison to other things, like they go from more realistic eyes to dotted eyes. And that's not a problem. It's just a unique style. I think that it stands out. Anyway, I really recommend this book. It's very visually very beautiful, very interesting, and just a lot of the imagery in it is just chilling and creepy as fuck. If you like horror, I'm going to say check it out. If you don't like horror, I'm going to say still give it a read, because the thing is, it almost seems to be like it's preparing up for something else. Like, it doesn't seem to be like kill, death, murder for no reason. It seems to try to be optimistic, because it ends on this note of like, I'm going to become the town doctor, I'm going to become the town healer, I'm just going to try and help people, but I'm not afraid to push back. So I'm really recommending Harrow County, Countless Hates. Now the next book I'm covering, what got me was initially, well, it was a combination of things. It was the cover, the name, and then the author. It's written by Ed Brubaker. He's most well known for, by this point, probably most well known for his work in Captain America. He has his own his own original series, Fatale, as well as he's written for Batman, Gotham City Central. There's some other really big ones in there that I'm drawing a blank on, but I know that the big thing he's really known for by this point is a lot of Captain America, especially since he's the one that wrote Winter Soldier, which went on to inspire one of the best Marvel movies made. So, this book's called Kill or Be Killed, and it has this very, like, noir pulp style artwork to it. And earlier I said these are all mostly horror books that I'm kind of going over for this issue. You can still call this a horror book. Looking back on it the second time, I'm going to say it's a little bit more of a dark, dramatic action story with horror elements. There's definitely horror there that you cannot deny, but it's almost kind of like what's real and what's not. From reading it several times, I'm pretty sure what the guy in this book is going through is real, but I guess we really don't know. And either way, it's still kind of scary. So, spoilers ahead for this book, for Kill or Be Killed. The artists are the artist and the colors for this book is Sean Phillips and Elizabeth. I'm gonna butcher this name. Sorry, folks. Briatweezer. Well, however you pronounce her name, she did a great job because this book is fantastic on all levels. The writing, the coloring, the penciling. It has this real film noir kind of style to it. It's really aiming for realism. Now, every so often, a lot of comic books that try to go really hard for realism kind of take me out of it. Like when Brian Michael Bendis was working on some Daredevil stuff back in the day. It wasn't that it was all bad, but there was just some of that really realistic, gritty shit it was trying to go for. And I get Daredevil is a little bit more over the top, not over the top, but a little bit more like noir and grittier, and I get that. But every so often, I kind of want comics to have a little bit more of a, I guess, maybe surreal or kind of a exaggerated look. But for this one, the look's not so exaggerated, but I'm all right with that because it's all very it's fitting. It's very much to take place in our world, but with just a few other little things that happen along the way. So it centers around a guy named Dylan, who is not really happy with where his life is at. He was going to grad school. He thinks he should be farther along than he is in life. He's very depressed. He's tried to kill himself in the past, but didn't, and that set him further back in life. And he's just have a couple of things that just have always haunted him. He's narrating the story, and he even says things like, there's this one time these assholes on this bus were harassing me and my girlfriend at the time, and it just always haunted me. It always just bothered me. And it's one of those things, it may not seem like it's very important to the overall story, but I think we all have a couple of those moments that just haunt you. They just dig at you. You wish you could almost just shove it to the side, and it may not, but for whatever reason, that had an impact on you. And he just, that scene, it may not seem important, but it really shows right there what this guy's like. So the main story of Kill or Be Killed is about this guy named Dylan who he's just depressed. Like I said earlier, he's depressed with his life. He thinks he should be further than what he is. And part of that comes from just sexual frustration because he has his best friend, this redhead named Kira, who he's head over heels for. He's always liked this girl. And at some point in time, he introduced her to his friend Mason, who is this kind of like, yo, bro, what's going on, man? Kind of guy. And everything just seems to be working out awesome for Mason. And slowly over time, he's kind of resented Mason for that. He went from being his friend to being like, oh yeah, hey friend, here's my best friend. Oh, you guys are hooking up? And then slowly just kind of just like, fuck him. I can't stand this fucking guy. Because he's just that, he's always happy, he's always chipper, and Dylan just can't match that mood. And also, they're very like touchy-feely in front of him. So that's just something that just haunts him. He can't stand that. And he's bitter with, as I said earlier, he's bitter with everything in his life at the moment. And one night he hears through the vents of his room into his roommate's room, he hears Kira say, I don't know, I just feel sorry for him. And that just sends him over the edge. The idea of the girl of his dreams, telling his friend, one of his only friends, that I just feel sorry for him. I don't know. I feel bad for him. And then another thing I should have mentioned earlier on is whenever Mason's not around, Kira will do this thing where she starts to make out with Dylan. But it's this whole hush-hush secret thing, and it's just this kind of... It's just making things more and more awkward, and he does not want to be any pity fuck or any sympathy fuck or anything like that. So one night, after he hears her say that she feels bad for him, he decides, this is it, I'm going to end it. And the narration, because this is all first-person narration, this is very good because Brubaker really goes into detail of kind of like how when you jump off it, immediately, like midair, you regret it. You hate the idea of it. And I'm kind of wondering how much of this is actually, because this seems like a very personal story, I'm wondering how much of this is actually inspired by real life events. I mean, I can't imagine too much of it, but I think this seems so personal. I imagine to some extent it has to be. Maybe he knows someone that tried to kill himself or what, but talks about how midway down he regrets it, and then when he landed, though, the fall should have killed him, but he's so happy to be alive. And the book, actually, for as dark and as gritty and violent as it is, actually isn't afraid to have a little bit of comedy. It says, in that moment, everything seems beautiful. He's looking up, it's starting to snow. He says, snow is so fucking beautiful. And maybe it's supposed to be more of a dramatic moment, but to me that just seems kind of funny. Just that idea, just the perfect timing right there. And there's other moments like that in this book. Well, from there, he has this, he's not sure if it's a dream or what, but he starts to see this demon, this black, shadowy demon that comes to him and tells him that, you know what, if you killed yourself, but you survived. Somehow you survived, so what you're going to do, it's going to be like rent. Every month, you owe me someone evil. You owe me an evil soul. That's what's keeping you from dying. This is where the horror part of the book comes in. Because up until this, because I'm going to say, if you just looked at the cover of this book and you flipped through it, you'd almost think you're looking at kind of like a dark action noir. But that concept alone right there, the idea of this demon is telling this guy, hey, if you don't kill, you're going to die. And for a while, he brushes it off like he's crazy. Like he does not know. Like he's like, it's probably kind of like some form of PTSD or something like that. I probably am not really seeing this thing. But he keeps on seeing this demon whenever he looks into a shadow or whenever he there's darkness in the corner of the room. You just see these pair of eyes and these teeth just staring him down. And he's getting sicker and sicker, just vomiting, not feeling well. It's almost a month. So he finally says, fuck it, I'm going to give it a shot, just see what happens. He narrows down to an acquaintance. He thinks back to his childhood and remembers he had this one friend. And when he was a kid, he didn't know it, but he realized this one friend of his was sexually assaulted by his older brother. And at the time, he didn't know what it meant, but as he got older, he put the pieces together. That friend went on to become a heroin addict and overdosed, and it was just the sad thing. And he also remembers that his father had a unregistered gun, or a gun past his registration, like in a box of old books. So he goes home to fetch. One day he goes home back to his parents' house to find the gun. Comes back, and I should mention his father also did he got across some of his more depressing, kind of existential views of life, kind of sort of come from his father, because his father was a guy who wanted to become this great artist, be really recognized, but all he ever did was just do a bunch of weird kind of sexy fantasy artwork for things it doesn't say any particular books in particular, but it's just things like heavy metal or kind of like Frank Frazetta stuff. He never really wanted to do erotic fantasy stuff. He always wanted to become some well-known artist, but that's all he ever was ever hired to do. And for that, he himself became very depressed, and I believe his father killed himself too. But anyway, while going to get the gun, he says, okay. He narrows down, he uses Facebook to track down the brother of his friend who overdosed because of his past trauma. He finds him, kills him. Next day, feels fine. Does not feel sick. Does not feel... It's like as if it all went away. And from there, he accepts it that, oh wow, this demon, it's talking to me. If I actually kill somebody, I don't feel sick. This thing is real. So from there on in, he starts making it his mission to try and make it seem randomized, but not too hard for him to not too hard to be tracked down. And that's where it kind of, we also see his love life starts to get a little bit more complicated, because at some point Mason's gone and Kira and Dylan start actually sleeping together, and they're like, we got to figure this out. I don't know what's going on. Sure enough, though, that's his excuse. He keeps on going out, and he narrows down. He does some investigating, does some digging, starts going to the strip club that's ran by the Russian mafia. In doing so, he says, okay, all these girls are technically sex trafficked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out there and I'm going to save these girls. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start by killing these two guys that are their guards. And he watches them, learns the routine, goes after the guy. Because the last guy he killed was just some piece of shit child molester who's not really a had no combat experience or anything like that. This guy is a trained guy from the Russian mafia, and he goes up to him pointing a gun, nervous, like, "Hey man, I'm gonna kill you, this and that." And the guy's like, "No, you're not. You're a pussy." He's not even shaken. He's not even scared. He kills the guy, but in the process, he one of the girls gets out of the van and starts to wail on him with, like, she has a bunch of rings on her finger, starts to punch his face in. And that's where he just desperately shoots the girl in the stomach. Now, we don't know if the girl lives or dies, but that's just one of those things like, oh, fuck, I gotta keep doing this. So, those are the books for this week. I'm looking forward to the next Kill or Be Killed, or Harrow County. The next episode should be Spencer doing whatever books he's pulling out of his comic book stack. If you like what you hear and all that, just don't be afraid to subscribe to our YouTube channel or to our podcast. For the time being, you could hear this right now. Chances are you're listening to this more than likely on YouTube or Newgrounds. Eventually, we're going to, when we get more episodes, possibly start up another Podomatic channel for this and start uploading it to there. But for now, we're just doing it on these other sides. So, follow me at Dunigan Ryan on Twitter, and at Grit5 on Instagram, and hope to see you folks real soon. Hope you like the show. And the music we are closing out with, once again, as well as the music we opened with, is Them Strangers. You all have a good one. Thank you. Bye.
Begins. You gotta go where the sun will found. You gotta live.